श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः। So we continue with the study of the Mumuksupadi. Come to the 25th Sutra. Vachakatirkattil vachyattile onnuhaikkadi Ishwarane upayopeyamenna ninaittirikkai. So in the previous session, we saw how all the Purvacharyas have utilized the mantra to attain fulfillment. Having studied that aspect, we further go to a very important issue associated with the sutra, which Manavana Mamuni comments as follows. Vachaka Shakti Sarvattayam Sadit Kodukkavattayirikka Idinudiya Vachyattile Ivarhal Undraik Hetu Veden Rudichai Hirar Vachakattirkattil Ennu Thodangi. It is a very complicated and crucial point that is to be noted. So there are two words that we should familiarize ourselves with in this context. One is Vachaka and another is Vachya. We have already come across these two words earlier. Once again, it is being mentioned in a different dimension here. For example, now I have this headphone in front of me. So this is known as a headphone. So the word headphone, which is spelled as HEADPHONE or something like that, is known as Vachaka, that which denotes an object or entity. Whereas Vachya is this object, which is circular in this place, which has this type of a dimension, etc. So what is the difference between Vachaka and Vachya? Vachya is nothing but the entity that is denoted, which is in the form of an object. It need not be an object that has mass, and it need not be three-dimensional. For example, if you take the word sky, the word sky denotes a particular entity, but it does not have any dimensions. So the entity that is denoted by a word is known as Vachya, and the word that denotes an entity is known as Vachaka. And as I mentioned in one of the earlier sessions, these two are invariably connected to each other. there can be no entity that is not denoted by a word, and there is no word that does not denote an entity. Suppose I make a sound like this. In Sanskrit, it is known as dhvani or shabda, or a sound which does not have any specific meaning. Of course, in a particular context, it might have some meaning. Suppose there is a big crowd and everybody is talking to one another, and if you want to gain their attention or make them be silent, then you might actually clap your hand. Or if you want to call somebody who is going opposite the direction where you are standing, then you may clap loudly and call them to come back or something like that. So that means to gain their attention, you might use a sound like clap or something like that. But the sound emanating by clapping of the hand does not have any specific meaning. Whereas if I take a word like headphone or a pen or a paper or something like that, it has the same meaning in all contexts almost. That is the literal meaning. Of course, implied meaning, there can be several implied meanings. That's a different thing. So here, the Ashtakshara Mahamantra is the Vachaka. Especially the word Narayana is the Vachaka that denotes an entity. And the Supreme Lord Narayana, who is the creator, etc. of this universe, is the Vachya. But ultimately, do we want the Vachaka or Vachya? Where do we actually go and whom do we attain ultimately? We don't attain the word Narayana. We attain the entity that is denoted by the word Narayana. So earlier it was mentioned, Draupadikki Apattile Pudevishurandari Tirunamamide. Vachya Prabhavam Polandu Vachaka Prabhavam. So in the case of Draupadi, just because she called Govinda, even though the Lord did not appear there directly, the word itself accomplished what needed to be accomplished. So many a times, suppose, that is why I gave the example. Suppose Keshavdas ji is a close friend of Donald Trump, and I need to get some work done from him. So I will tell him, though Keshavdas might not have sent me, I will go to Trump and say, your great friend Keshavdas has sent me to meet you and get this work done. Immediately he may accede to my request, because it has I have come from his close friend M.D. Keshavdas. So that means the name Keshavdas itself carries so much of weight, irrespective of the individual. So that is what was mentioned in the context of Draupadikki Apattile Pudevishurandari Tirunamamide. Even though it was Lord Krishna himself who facilitated the entire thing, she was interested, or all she did was she said Govinda, Govinda. So Govindeti Yada Krandate Krishna Mam Duravasam, that is the shloka. So mere mentioning of the name itself can accomplish what needs to be accomplished. That was what mentioned there. Yes, that is true in one context. But in another context, not only the name, but the entity that is denoted by the name also is very important. That is why all our Purvacharyas ultimately indulged in the Vachya rather than the Vachaka. They indulged in the Supreme Lord himself rather than indulging in the name of the Lord. So this, we should not actually feel that these two sutras are contradictory to each other. In fact, they are complementary to each other. When you see the greatness of the name itself, then you feel that itself is great. But when you see the ultimate reality that we all have to attain, then Vachya becomes important. So it's a very, very subtle concept which has been explained here. So he says, Vachakatirkattil Vachattile Unruhaikiyadi Ishwarane Upayopeyamindri Ninaitirikkai. So which is commented upon like this. அதிலங்காட்டில் கீழ் சொன்னபடியே இம்மந்திரத்தினுடைய வாச்சியத்திலே பூர்வாச்சாரியர்கள் ஊன்றுகைக்கு உபேயாந்தரபரராய் இத்தை சாதனமாக கொண்டு சாதித்தல் உபாயாந்தரபரராய் இத்தை சககாரியாக கொள்ளுதல் செய்யும் அவர்களைப் போல நிக்கே உபாயோபேயங்கள் இரண்டும் ஈஸ்வரனே என்று பிரபத்தி பண்ணி இருக்கை என்னபடி. A very, very important concept that is unique to Sri Vaishnava philosophy. So in this, as I keep mentioning, even in Sri Vaishnava philosophy, there are several stages in which the Sri Vaishnava, to which a Sri Vaishnava progresses. So it's like when you are in your 5th standard or 6th standard in primary school or middle school, you are taught in a particular manner. When you go to high school, you are treated in a different manner. The mode of instruction is different. When you reach the pre-university level, there it is different. When you read the degree or post-graduation level, the mode of instruction methodology itself is different. And when you are in the PhD level or post-doctoral level, it is different. So these are being mentioned at different levels based on the stage in which a person exists or in which he is. So what Manavana Mamuni says here is, though one actually uses the mantra as a means to attain the Supreme Lord, further, after passing a particular stage, what happens? People may even leave the mantra. They will engage in the Supreme Lord alone. So it is like actually in Andal's Tirupavai, I don't know if you are familiar with this or not. There is a big discussion. So after they attained the presence of the Lord Krishna in Tirupavai, what did they ask for? Because when Goda Devi or Andal and all her mates, everything of course is purely happening in the mind of Andal. It happened in the mind of Andal. Not that she physically did all those things. Like in the case of Nammalvar, who actually had all the experiences within himself. But he explains all the happenings in the world. If you study the Tiruvazhmozhi, my father many a times he keeps telling, he has very beautifully analyzed the minds of the people of all different types of people. How do non-devotees believe? How do devotees believe? How do people engage in business think? How do people engage in academic things think? Of course, they are not analyzed from these points of view. How do people who are the rulers think? How do people who are not the rulers, who are ordinary people, how do they think? For example, I will just give an example. For example, if there is a king, he wants to obsess, though he is already supreme, he wants to listen people talk about his supremacy. So he wants people to praise him. Even today in India, I don't know how it is in the US, all politicians, they want themselves to be praised by the people. So they go out of the way to do it. And many a times they surround themselves with sycophants who praise them in an incorrect manner or who just exaggerate things. So Nammalvar says, Shunnal virodhamidu ahinam sholluvan kelmino. And in another context he says, Yennavilin kaviyan oruvarkum kodukkiye. So in one context he says, People will not like what I am telling, but I would like to tell it. So he says, I'll try to call a spade a spade. I will not worry about what people think. And in another context, he says, I will not give the services of my tongue to any person other than the Supreme Lord, which means I will not praise any other person except the Supreme Lord. That is Lord Narayana. And of course, his avatars, his pastimes, etc. And things associated with him. So, people generally, suppose there is a great poet, the king of the times, king of those times, used to say, I want to get praised by that poet. We have seen several instances in several stories of several kings wanting to be praised by the best poet of the land of that time. So like this, there are several aspects, several psychological issues. So why I am telling this is, but the அதிலங்காட்டில் கீழ் சொன்னபடியே மந்திரத்தினுடைய வாச்சியத்திலே பூர்வாச்சாரியர்கள் மூன்றுகைக்கடி உபாயாந்தரபரராய் இத்தை சாதனமாக கொண்டு சாதித்தல். So, do you consider the Ashtakshara Maha Mantra as an upaya or not? Is a question. When you go higher and higher and higher, what happens is you will not feel that something little bit inferior can lead to something extremely superior. So this is well established by what is known as the Tatkratun-nyaya in the Shastras, which I may have explained briefly. Very briefly, I'll explain it once again. So Tatkratun-nyaya means what? So in the government, when we talk about government jobs in India, we always complain to the higher authorities that there is a pay disparity. Even in private companies, it exists. So one person may approach his boss and say, sir, he is doing a job that is inferior to me, but he is getting paid more. So either I should be getting the pay equal to him or I should be paid more. This is what is known as the pay disparity, or in government jobs, there is the big issue all the time. Most of the employees will be discussing about the pay disparity only rather than doing their work, especially in India. Of course, with due regards to people who work honestly and sincerely. So, Tatkratun-nyaya is what? Yatha kratuhu asmin loke purusho bhavati tataha itah pretya bhavati. The fruits that a person will enjoy hereafter, after leaving this body, is commensurate with the sadhana anushtana. It is commensurate with what? The duties he performs when he is alive. Yatha kratuhu asmin loke purusha bhavati. So the fruits that he attains after leaving the body is commensurate with the efforts he has put in when he possesses this body. So there is no disparity between the efforts and the results. That is what is Tatkratun-nyaya. So here also, in the beginning, though we say the mantra can help attain everything, including moksha and also all the worldly aspects also. After a particular stage, when you go to a highest level or the higher level or highest level, whichever it is, because we cannot understand which is higher, which is highest, etc. Ultimately, it does not differ from the Supreme Lord himself. So it says, Vachyatil undruhaikkyadi upeyantara ittai sadhanamah kondu sadhittal upayantara ittai sahakarya kondudal செய்யும் அவர்களைப் போல நிக்கே உபாயோபேயங்களிரண்டும் ஈஸ்வரனே என்று பிரதிபத்தி பண்ணியிருக்கை என்றபடி. A very, very, very subtle concept which has to be understood in a very correct manner. But after a particular stage is reached by the Sri Vaishnava or by the spiritual aspirant who wants to attain moksha, or the Mumukshu as he is called, ultimately what happens? They will go beyond the mantra. Though the mantra is a stepping stone, they will not rest with the mantra only. They will go beyond the mantra, that is the vachaka, and ultimately rest in the vachya only, as both the upaya as well as upaya. So to explain it in an easier manner, so in the beginning what do? You use the Ashtakshara Mahamantra maximum with the intention of attaining moksha or liberation, that is attaining the Paramapada of the Supreme Lord. But as you continuously progress, that is how I am telling, not telling it 100 times, 200 times, probably even for several janmas, because Krishna says, Aneka janma samsiddha tato yati param. So chanting that mantra in the highest state of consciousness, to put it in a modern terminology, you have to reach that state of consciousness wherein you actually tell the mantra in the most effective manner, where it actually reaches the Supreme Lord himself directly. Then when you reach that stage, what happens? Ultimately, you have the Supreme Lord himself as the means, rather than the mantra as the means. This is what our Purvacharyas have done. So then what happens? The Supreme Lord is the means, and the Supreme Lord himself is the end also. So that is why there is no phalataratamya, as it is mentioned in the Shastras. So according to the Madhva philosophy, what happens? There is taratamya, or differentiation between the levels of happiness a liberated soul enjoys based on the efforts he has put in this world. So suppose I chant the Ashtakshara Mahamantra 1 billion times and I get liberated. So Keshava Swami chants it for 2 billion times and he also gets liberated. One more person chants it for 3 billion times and he gets liberated. But according to Sri Vaishnava philosophy, the bliss enjoyed in moksha or liberation is equal. There is no differentiation. There is no, I am enjoying higher bliss, you are enjoying lower bliss, or you are enjoying higher bliss, I am enjoying lower bliss. Is not there. Then the question comes, does the Tatkratu Nyaya, which was just explained now, does it not hold good? Yes, it holds good. But as you reach a particular level, what happens is the Supreme Lord himself will become the means. Therefore, there is no taratamya or differentiation in the means, because the Supreme Lord Narayana himself is the means. And which is the end? He is the end once again. So he is the means, he is the end. Upaya, Bhagavaneva Upayaha, Bhagavaneva Upeya. Using him as the means, we attain him only. So as the Mumukshu, or the person who is interested in attaining liberation, progresses, what happens? The Supreme Lord himself will become the Upaya, rather than the mantra that denotes the Supreme Lord. So this is the concept Swami Manavada Mamuni is trying to explain here, which is a very, very subtle concept. It should be understood in the proper spirit, without confusing, without any confusion. I hope I have been able to explain it to you in a manner that is easily understandable. So that's what he says. செய்யும் அவர்களைப் போல நிக்கே உபாயோபேயங்கள் இரண்டும் ஈஸ்வரனே. Both the means as well as the end. Both are the Supreme Lord only. என்று பிரதிபத்தி பண்ணி இருக்கை என்றபடி. But this is not the beginning itself. It is after the person reaches a particular stage. One very important aspect has to be noted in this context. Many a times people are told in the lectures or discourses that once we attain the supreme name of the Supreme Lord Narayana, immediately moksha is assured. Yes, it is true. In what sense? That means he is on the right path. But even afterwards, there is a long way to progress. So to mention about the greatness of this name of the Lord, Supreme Lord Narayana, it is mentioned, once he mentions it, he is assured of moksha. But afterwards, it is like, if you have a bank account, you can get money from abroad. I am just giving a very, very mundane example. Because without a bank account, how can you get money from abroad? Suppose you have to send some money for some thing for building a temple or something like that. You have to have a bank account. So I have a bank account, I can receive money, but unless the money is received, I cannot do what I need to do. So bank account is a prerequisite for that. But unless a person, a philanthropist, sends some money as donation, I cannot build a temple or print some book or whatever it is. But when somebody says, see, if you have a bank account, then you can get donations and do some good work. So it is like that. So if you know the Narayana Nama, if you chant the Narayana Nama and also Ashtakshara Mahamantra, you can accomplish everything. How many times? With what type of mentality? What type of mental disposition? What type of atmosphere? What type of a mindset you should have? All these things are mentioned there. But when one has to know the greatness of the Narayana Nama or the Ashtakshara Mahamantra, in that context, it is said immediately you will attain moksha. But it's not as easy as it is said. So it is easier said than done. That is how I would like to put it. So this is what he says. It's a very, very subtle point that ultimately what happens, the person who is a devotee, as he starts to go higher and higher and higher in the spiritual path, ultimately he will go beyond the mantra and have the Supreme Lord Narayana himself as the means also. And of course, Lord Narayana is the end. We have to attain him. Attaining him only is our principal aim of life. So that will happen. And why there is no Taratamya difference in the bliss all the Divatmas enjoy once they attain Paramparamis. Of course, Tatkratulnyaya applies, but since the Supreme Lord himself becomes the Upaya, there is no difference in the Upaya. Therefore, there is no difference in the Upaya. Therefore, there is no difference in the Phala also, that is the fruits or results. This is the purport of this sutra. Then we come to the 26th sutra. Iridannil cholluhiravartham swarupamam swarupanurupamana prapyamam swarupamam upayamam phalavum yennavuma. So 5 important aspects are mentioned here. Swarupa, Swarupanurupamana prapyam, Swarupam, Upayam, Phalam. We are quite familiar with these words. So I will not once again go to the explanation of the words. I will go to the commentary and then explain it. Inimel in mantratrikya vakyartham இரண்டுபடியாக அருளிச் செய்கிறார் இது தன்னில் என்று தொடங்கி. So hereafter the meaning of the sentence, literal meaning, and also the meanings that are attained by going further to the literal meaning are explained by Pillalokacharya. That is what Swami Manavada Mamni says. He says, Adavade immantran tannil solluhiravartham ivatmavinudiya sheshatva paratantringalahiraswarupamum அந்த ஸ்வரூபத்துக்கு அனுரூபமாயிருந்துள்ள கைங்கரியமாகிற பிராப்யமும். So, the main aspects that are focused upon by this mantra are as follows according to the first interpretation. So, the first one is Ivatma Vinudiya Sheshatva Paratantringalahira Swarupamum. So, the Swarupa are the main feature of the individual soul. What is it? How is the individual soul defined? What are his unique and exclusive characteristics? This is mentioned as Sheshatva Paratantringal. One is, he is totally subservient to the Supreme Lord, which is Sheshatva, and he is totally Paratantra. He is totally dependent on the Supreme Lord. So, total dependence and total subservience. These are the two most important features that define a Jivatma. One thing we can realize in a very gross manner, even ordinary people like me can understand, we can realize that even the breathing is not in our hands. It is, we are totally dependent on the wishes of the Supreme Lord. Because what has to happen when we have no control over anything in life? Of course, we go to our places of work, we do something, we write something, we read something, we tell something, we eat something, all those things. We feel they are under our control. But that doesn't, this should not be used, misused or abused, this theory. Because some people who may engage in some illicit practices, they may tell, it is all the wish of God that I am happening. It is happening like this. It's not under my control. Out of a sense of escapism, that is not correct. But when you think deeply, you don't know how and when, for what purpose you are born. When a person is going to die, who knows? Nobody knows. Even the person himself doesn't know, his relatives doesn't know, nobody else knows. And what has to happen to a person in his life, when? What is going to happen, nobody knows. Why it is going to happen, nobody knows. Nothing will be known. Even this, the inhalation and exhalation, which is the key to the sustenance of life in this body. It is not in our hands, because we inhale and exhale even when we are unconscious. We inhale and exhale involuntarily when we are asleep. Do we do it consciously? No. Then who is making it happen? It is the Supreme Lord Himself. So that is why it is said in the Shastras that even the inhalation and exhalation, which is the cause of sustenance of life in this body, is purely due to the will of the Supreme Lord. You may call Him Supreme Lord, or you may call Him some unknown force that is dictating everything in this life. However you call it, it doesn't matter, it is the same thing. So it is, we are totally Paratantra. Yes, good word, autonomic. So we are totally not in control of ourselves. Then in whose control are we? Are we in the control of some other human being? No. Are we in control of course, some things might be controlled by some of our relatives or something like that, but that's not the issue here. Who else can control the inhalation and exhalation and make it happen? So that is why Paratantriya, or total dependence on the Supreme Lord is one of the unique features, exclusive features of this Jivatma. Then Sheshatva. Sheshatva is one aspect. Paratantriya, that is why I said Paratantriya we can realize to a particular extent in a very gross manner even now. But Sheshatva is very difficult to realize. We don't realize as of now. Of course, you may have some inkling, but that I feel, as far as I am concerned, that realization has dawned on me that I am totally subservient to the Lord. But in reality, that is so. We are totally subservient to the Lord. We are totally dependent, we are totally subservient. So these two have to be realized by a Sri Vaishnava first. Unless he realizes both these things, he will not be a person who has attained the knowledge of his own self. And thus then, Ivatma Vinude Sheshatva Paratantriyangala Hiraswarupamam. How beautifully he has explained. You see, how objectively he has explained. Andaswarupatukku Anurupamayirandulla Kainkariyamahira Prapyamum. Then what is the Prapya? What is the thing we have to attain? Andaswarupatukku Anurupamayirandulla Kainkariyamahira Prapyamum. So, very ordinary example. Opposite example is, can I win Wimbledon now? Wimbledon tennis championship now? No. Because it is not according to my Swarupa. You have to have a very lean body. You should be expert in playing tennis. Probably you should start. A Wimbledon champion average age is about 20 or 21. So a Wimbledon champion typically starts when he is 7 or 8. He has to have a very lean body. He has to be fit. So he should be good in serving and volleying or something like that, as they tell in tennis language, not a baseliner. Because on grass courts you have to be a servant volley player, that's what they say. So the Prapya is always according to this Swarupa. Suppose I dream of becoming the American president. Of course, if God's will is there, it may happen, but that is not at all likely. It is totally unlikely or impossible. Impossible because I am not an American citizen first. So that is why Andaswarupatukku Anurupamayirandulla Kainkariyamahira Prapyamum. So the Prapya has always to be in accordance with the Swarupa. So if I want to attain scholarship in a particular field of Sanskrit, yes, that is possible because I have learned the basics of Sanskrit to a particular extent. So that Prapya or that attainment is according to my Swarupa. Suppose I want to, of course, now I am not well versed in the Divya Prabandhas. My knowledge of Divya Prabandhas is almost next to zero. But suppose I want to learn the Divya Prabandhas in a good manner. I may be able to do it because I have learned the basics well to some extent, and then I can indulge in that and I can learn it. That is not an issue. So the Prapya is according to my Swarupa. Or if I want to write something in English, if I improve my language skills, if I improve my comprehension skills, I may be able to do it because I know the basics of English. Therefore, since the Swarupa of a Jivatma or individual soul is Sheshatva and Paratantriya, that is subservience and total dependence on the Supreme Lord. What is the Prapya? What should he aspire for? He should aspire for Kainkariya. Because that is his nature. He is born to serve the Lord and nothing more than that. But when you say nothing more than that, is the servitude to the Lord an end in itself? Yes, it is an end in itself. Because that is where divine bliss exists. When a person engages in the servitude of the Supreme Lord, nothing more is enjoyable. So here, as I mentioned, the Advaitins actually raise an objection. How is it that serving another person can result in happiness? Because in Sanskrit also it is said, Seva Shvavrittirakhyata. Servitude is always like the life of a dog. You always have to be at the beck and call of the master. So how do you say that servitude? They even say, of course, when you are working under a boss, you feel, oh, it is my karma that I am working for under a boss. He is troubling me no end. When will I get liberated from this from this bloody fellow? Many times people will feel like that. Because Seva Shvavrittirakhyata. Engaging in the servitude of another person is like being a dog who is at the beck and call of his master. No, is the answer given by the Vishishtadvaita philosophy. Only if the servitude or seva is karma paravasha, is being done due to the bondage, then only it is most despisable or despisable. On the other hand, if it is voluntary, on the other hand, if it is out of love or affection, then definitely it is most enjoyable. And the very beautiful analogy is given. So when a mother gives birth to a child, she will perform all sorts of types of services to the young child. She will clean all the uncleanly issues, all the excreta and urine, etc. of the child. But does she feel unhappy? Does she feel uncomfortable doing that? No. She does it with utmost love and affection. Because she feels it is my child. So when it is Priti Karita, of course, here also it is Karma Paravasha only. It is due to the past karmas only. She is the mother and an individual soul has taken the form of her son or daughter. But when even if it is Karma Paravasha, when it is done with Priti or involuntarily done with affection, it becomes most enjoyable. Even in India, you see, when the son is even 25 to 30 years old, the mother will apply oil to the head of the son, which is a very important shastra or an event in all the auspicious samskaras or sacramental events that are conducted. So the mother will be about 60 or 70 years old. She will, with great affection, she will apply oil to the head of the son or even daughter. So when a kainkariya or service is done out of love and affection, involuntarily or voluntarily, it is most enjoyable. So when the son partakes of the food that is prepared by the mother with appreciation, the mother feels, oh, she has attained fulfillment because my son has enjoyed the food that I have prepared. When this is, suppose a mother says, a son says, a young child which is 3 or 6 months old, assuming that it can talk. Suppose it says, I will not get served by you, you just leave me. Will the mother feel unhappy or happy? She will feel most unhappy. So when this is the case, when the Supreme Lord, who is the repository of all the auspicious qualities that exist, that can exist, serving him will be of utmost bliss. It would be the only blissful thing in the world when the Supreme Lord accepts our service. So that is why ultimately there is nothing other more blissful than engaging in the Kainkarya of the Supreme Lord. And that is very much in line with the nature of the Jiva. It's not something very far-fetched. So, Andaswarupathukku Anurupamayirundulla Kainkaryamahira Prapyamum. How beautifully Pranavada Mavani explains it. Annike. So, this is one way of explaining it. Another way of explaining it is Sheshattvamahira Swarupamam Andaswarupanurupamana Upayamam Upayarabhyamana Padavum Indrishullumam. So, assuming that Sheshatva alone is his nature, we will not take into consideration Paratantriya dependence. Then the Upaya, that means the means. The means also has to be in accordance with this one. This is very important once again. So, suppose now I have to earn some money. What will I do? I will engage in teaching. I may engage in some religious service. I may do something else. Can I work in the farm and earn money? No, because it is not according to my Swarupa. Can I engage in the business of shares and stocks, etc.? No, it is not according to my Swarupa. Of course, several Vaidikas do that. That's a different thing. So the Upaya has to be according to the Swarupa. Or I may engage in some japa or something like that and ask the Lord to say, I have so many loans, so please suggest some means to me so that I can overcome the loans. I may chant them some stotra. I may chant some, it is many among Sri Vaishnavas, several names of Vishnu Sahasranama might be chanted to attain prosperity in terms of money. Because it says Artharthi cha Arthamapniya in the Sahasranama Phalashruti. So always the Upaya has to be in accordance with the Swarupa. And then Upayarabhyamana Padavum Yendrishallu Mamingai Idil Prathamayojanatile Pranavanamasakadare Swarupamum Narayana Padattare Prapyamum Shalluhiradi. So in the first interpretation, where it says these two are the Swarupa and the Phala. It is Sheshatva and Paratantriya, subservience and dependence, total dependence. These are mentioned in the Prathamayojanatine in the first interpretation. Pranava Namaskadare Swarupamum Om and Namaha denote the Swarupa, that is Sheshatva and Paratantriya, subservience and dependence. Narayana Padattare Prapyamam Shalluhiradi. The word Narayana denotes the object to be attained, that is Kainkarya. Objective to be attained, that is Kainkarya. The second interpretation, Anantarayojanil Pranavattale Sheshattvamam Namassale Upayamam Narayana Padattale Phalamam Shalluhirati. The second interpretation, the word Om denotes Sheshatva, subservience. The word Namaha denotes the Upaya, and the fruit or the result is mentioned by the word Narayana. Both the interpretations are quite correct, quite precise, depending upon the point of view from which you see it. There is no contradiction between the two interpretations. So this is the meaning of the 26th Sutra. Then what is the fruit? What is the result? Pilladokacharya says in this 27th Sutra, Phalamirukum Prameshe Karattilum Archiradigatilum Shunno. So he gives a cross reference. He says the nature of the fruits, the results, a person attains by chanting the Ashtakshara Mahamantra is explained in detail in two other works that I have authored. One is Prameya Shekaram and another is Archiradigati. These are the two other among the Ashtadasha Rahasyas. The work called Prameya Shekara is one very important work, and Archiradigati is another very important. So that the nature of the result, namely moksha, is explained in detail in these two works. So he says, I will not repeat it. So please study those two works with regard to the nature of the fruit. However, Swami Manavana Mavali explains it in detail because we are very poor. So as soon as we read this sutra, do we refer to that work? Oh, he has mentioned in the Prameya Shekara, very good, fine. We just take it easy and we move on in life. Oh, it has been mentioned in Archiradigati. Okay, let us see. If it is mentioned, fine. We take it so casually. So Manavana Mamani knows that people like us who studied the Mumuksupadi are very casual in our approach. So he very beautifully explains what has been mentioned in the Prameya Shekaram and Archiradigati. பலவேஷந்தானிருக்கும்படி எங்கனே என்று அருளிச் செய்கிறார். பலமிருக்கும்படி என்று தொடங்கி, அதாவது இவ்வாத்மாவுக்கு பிராபியமான பலன்தான் அர்ச்சிராதி மார்க்கத்தாலே பரமபதத்திலே போய் பரிபூர்ண பகவத் அனுபவத்தை பண்ணி அவ்வனுபவ ஜனித பிரீத்தி பிரேரித்தனாய்க் கொண்டு பண்ணும் அசேஷ சேஷ பிரவருத்தியாகையாலே அதிருக்கும்படியை சங்கிரகேண பிரமேயசேகரமாகிற பிரபந்தத்திலும் விஸ்தரேண அர்ச்சிராதிகதியாகிற பிரபந்தத்திலும் விஷதமாகச் சொன்னோம் அவத்திலே கண்டு கொள்வதென்கை. So Manavana Mamani summarizes what has been mentioned in the Prameya Shekara in a concise manner and in the work called Archiradigati in a very detailed manner. What is that? It has to be explained in detail. So that we will do in the next session. With these words, I conclude today's session. Any feedback, discussions, questions are welcome.
So thank you very much, Swami. So you were speaking about the vacha and vachika.
Yes.
Yeah. So is it sometimes there's a word which denotes something which is not real? Somebody may make a word.
One example is given in the Shastras. For example, the horns of a rabbit. The rabbit horn, that is the example given. Or also the sky lotus.
Sky flower, yes.
There are some examples given like that. So the lotus is always found in the pond. It cannot be found in the sky. A lotus cannot be found in the sky because it is not born. It is born only in the pond. There also, or if you say the horns of a rabbit, or the rabbit horn, you can say the horns of a cow or a buffalo. Horns do not exist of a rabbit. There also, they have very beautifully and very clearly delineated. These two words also mean something that exists only. So when you say rabbit horn or shashashringa in Sanskrit, it means shashashringam nasti. You cannot even negate a shashashringa because it does not. You cannot negate an object that is totally non-existent. You can never even imagine an object that is totally non-existent. So even if for the sake of imagination you say the horns of a rabbit, here also you know horn separately, you know rabbit separately. Only the relationship between rabbit and horn is non-existent. Therefore, you can never ever mention a word which does not have a meaning, or there cannot be any entity that does not have a word to denote it. this relationship is a very, very complicated and subtle relationship, though it is very simple to understand in ordinary terms.
So, just for instance, we have in English the word void, and we have the word illusion. Void. So sometimes people say the space is a void. Void means it is, there is nothing there. But
Yes,
even then,
absence of everything positive
is a void.
Here
Yes.
also what happens, you are familiar with absence, the concept of absence. Suppose now, is there an elephant in front of me? No. So the elephant is absent, I will say. So absence, you are familiar. Absence of an entity like an elephant, you are familiar. So there also you are, when you say void, absence of any entity, there also you are familiar with the words absence and entity. Only those, the relationship does not exist. Illusion is a very famous, very complicated but very relatively simple topic. You can never have, a person who has not seen a snake in his life can never have an illusion of a snake. So it is the impression of something he has already seen on. So illusion also is in that way. Even illusion is real according to Ramanujacharya, because he says the knowledge cannot be verifiable. It is not verified because it's not according to the fact or the status of what exists in front of you. But there cannot be an illusion of an entity that you have never seen in this world. So that is why he says Yathartham Sarva Vigyan. That some people interpret that Ramanujacharya has never accepted the concept of illusion at all. That is totally wrong. He says even in illusion, you can have the premonition or the imagination of an object that is real. You cannot have an illusion of an unreal object. Or even for that matter, an object that you have never seen in this world.
So this idea will completely negate Advaita, because Advaita says Jagat Mithya. So if the world cannot be completely false, because nothing can be completely false.
Yes, yeah, in that sense you are right. Yes.
And also the Advaitins are saying that Brahman is Nirguna, but Nirguna.
Nirguna, of course,
yeah.
Yes.
So Nirguna itself is a guna.
There can never be anything that is devoid of attributes in this world. That is what Ramanujacharya very beautifully establishes in the Mahasiddha. Even if you say that an entity is totally devoid of qualities, it means you are telling it is devoid of the qualities that you are having in mind. So you say he is a useless fellow. Useless means what does he know? Is he not living? Is he not eating and all those things? Why do you say he is useless? It means the use that you are having in mind does not exist in him. That is why you are calling him useless. So he says, when you say Nirvishesha also, he says, Vivakshita Katipaya Vishesha Rahita. It does not have the attributes that you are having in mind, which is being mentioned as Nirvishesha.
So the Advaitins are saying that Brahman has the quality of having no qualities. So that means that it's...
No, they don't say like that. What we tell is, what we and also the Advaita school of philosophy tells is, even when you say it does not have a quality, that is also a quality in an indirect manner. That is also an attribute. You don't call it as a quality, but you call it as an attribute or dharma. Even Nirgunatva, as we call it in Shastric parlance, is also a dharma or an attribute of the entity. So how can you say there is no relationship of dharma dharmi bhava, or the substrate and substratum between two objects? But the Advaita viewpoint, it holds good in a totally alien scenario, which is not useful to us as of now. So there might be a stage, occur a stage when these differences fail to come to our notice. At that time, everything is one. Yes, we also accept that. But we don't talk about that stage now, because you cannot denote or you cannot have use any words to denote that stage. So why talk about it? But that is we don't discuss it at this stage because it doesn't make any sense.
So do we accept this idea of Anirvachaniya?
Anirvachaniya we don't accept. That is why Anirvachaniya, see, I will give an example. So suppose you render me a very, very great help which I can never forget. Then what will I say? Keshava Swami, I have no words to explain my gratitude. Anirvachaniya means what? That which cannot be explained by the medium of words. And that is what Anirvachaniya means. That means the help is rendered by you is so important, it is so vital, crucial, or whatever it is. So that is the highest state. That is when you say, I have no words to explain my gratitude. That doesn't mean that it cannot be explained at all. That is why when they say Brahma, Avedya, Avachya, it is not knowable. It is not sayable. It is not denotable. We say, yes, it is not knowable. Yes, in what sense? It is not knowable in its entirety. Because it does not have it is an endless entity. Nobody can know it fully. In that sense, it is not knowable. This way, it is very beautifully mentioned. Vachyatvam vedyatam cha swayam abhidavati brahmanaha anushravantaha vakchitta agocharatva shrutirapihi parichitya bhava prayutta. So we say, sveto vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. In one place it is said, Vedaisya sarve, Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, is knowable by means of the Vedas. In another place it says, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Are they not contradicting? No. Because one cannot know the Supreme Brahman in its entirety. Even the Vedas cannot know. Because there is no end to the Supreme Brahman. It is an endless entity. But that doesn't mean it is totally unknowable. Some portion of it is known to us. Is knowable.
So you are also talking about Taratamya.
Taratamya, we will, if you have if we need to have a detailed discussion, we will do it next week.
Okay, all right.
I know it's a very pet topic to you.
No, but also the thing, because some people feel there is a type of Taratamya in Vaikuntha, and other people also, we were just studying Gitartha Sangraha with the commentary of Vedanta Deshika, and he uses the word Taratamya, and he says that there's some people may want to get use bhakti yoga, and they come to a stage of wanting to become like Brahma or Indra. And then beyond that, somebody wants Kaivalya, and another person wants actual moksha in Paramapada, or Kainkarya to the Lord directly in Paramapada. And he says this is a Taratamya.
Oh, this we have discussed earlier. We will discuss it next week, surely.
Okay, great. So those are the main things that also I was thinking about the bliss, the Taratamya of the bliss of the Kaivalya and the bliss of the other types of moksha. So that's when you said Taratamya.
It's a very, very hot, very controversial topic even among the Sampradayas. We will surely discuss about it.
Yeah. So the very last thing that I wanted to just mention was this idea of the Swarupa, that everybody has to do according to their Swarupa. But if the Swarupa of the Jiva is the same, every Jiva's Swarupa is the same. So then, yes, why every jiva's journey and every jiva's path to Paramapada, to moksha, is not the same? If the Swarupa is the same.
This also we will discuss separately, because it has to be discussed at some length. So we will do it separately in the next class. So I will conclude with the Mangala Shloka.
Thank you.
Chedramam jetyesha chaturakshari Kamastham prapadyante jantavo antamadrishaha पुण्याम्भोजविकासाय पापध्वान्तक्षयाय च श्रीमानाविरभूद्भूमौ रामानुजदिवाकरः विनीकृतविरिञ्चारिनिरङ्कुशविभूतयः रामानुजपदाम्भोजसमाश्रयणशालिनः